So imagine a group of people chained and imprisoned in a cave since birth. They can only face the wall in front of them. The fire burns behind them, and between the fire and the prisoners is a walkway where objects are being carried. These objects cast shadows on the wall because these prisoners don't know any better. Those shadows are reality. And one day, one of the prisoners makes a run for it. He comes outside for the first time. First, his eyes have to adjust to the sun, but once they do, he can see how complex and beautiful and vivid life is, and he realizes that the shadows he saw weren't reality, they were just a poor reflection of it. Now imagine this prisoner going back into the cave. How much sense would it make for him to rejoin the other prisoners and stare at the wall again? I haven't been online in a hot minute. One day I just closed Instagram and never opened it again. The longer I stay away from social media, the more I think it looks like Plato's cave. The cave is a great metaphor for social media. We all know that phone addiction is an issue, and these apps are designed to keep us hooked. Hooked to the endless notifications, the likes, the validation, the easy dopamine hits, and how voluntary our participation is can be argued at this point. It's a machine that is designed to hold your attention in a vice grip, a prison, if you will. We could be considered the prisoners in the cave, and the shadows, the nonsense we swipe through all day. And okay, sure, if social media is a prison, it's more a Swedish prison than Guantanamo Bay. But it doesn't matter how nice a Swedish prison is. At the end of the day, it's still prison. The difference just is, unlike Plato's prisoners, we're not even chained to the wall, and the gate is wide open. And maybe that's why the modern cave that is social media is such a psychological force to be reckoned with. It doesn't force us to stay, it convinces us we don't want to leave. I'm willing to accept that we're prisoners, but what I can't wrap my head around is that we've already been outside of the cave. We have experienced reality, and yet we return to the cave to look at shadows every day. Even though we know damn well that most of the time we're not even having fun anymore. It's just an automatic response. We've all opened the Instagram app or the TikTok app without thinking about it, right? So it just got me thinking, what is it about these images that we're bombarded with on the daily that just draws us back in? This is where Plato's idea of the realm of forms could be a good explanation for why we spend so much of our lives looking at other people's lives. Please come along and see where this train of thought brought me. Plato believed that everything we see in the world is an imperfect copy of something perfect, a form. These forms exist in a high reality untouched by imperfection. Take chairs, for example. The chairs we know and love, the chair is just a imperfect version of an ideal, of the zenith of chairs. And so the physical world around us is nothing more than a shadow of something more profound. Unlike Plato's prisoners, we know there's a world outside. We've been there. But somehow we slowly get more convinced that what we're seeing is a perfected form of reality. The perfect body, the ideal family, the successful career, the best eyeballs. And so we start to believe that our own lives are this imperfect version of these higher ideals. Like we're the crappy chairs, like our life is a shadow of these higher experiences, and that has consequences. One of which is that these images actively shape how we see the world and ourselves. None of these images are a reflection of something real. They're just carefully curated, exaggerated, and just mostly made up. It begs the question, if the shadows we're gawking at are not a reflection of reality, then what the actual hell are we looking at? According to Plato, it's not that big a deal. All you have to do is leave the cave and then you can see reality again. I think that's way too easy. And this train of thought led me to another concept. The spectacle is a world where representations, the shadows, dominate and define how we experience reality. In Debord's world, the shadows on the wall aren't reflections of reality, they're representations of reality made by media and capitalism and technology. And these representations don't reflect reality, they obscure it. Take, for example, a designer handbag. Brands don't just show the thing as the receptacle for our crap it truly is. Instead, their branding represents the bag as an idea, as a symbol for class and sophistication and elegance. A reality totally made up by media and marketing. The glamour, the visuals, all of these things make you want the bag for the image it represents, not for its function. So just to take it back to the cave, the Advertisements itself are the shadow, and the bag is the object that casts the shadow. Debord would argue that the shadows have taken over the real object, shaping your perception of the bag not just as a tool, but as a status symbol. And the spectacle isn't limited to what we see on our screens. It's the entire system of modern life where real experiences are traded in for fake ones. And the only real reason these representations exist is constant consumption. It's about how every interaction with our world, from politics to personal identity, is shaped by an image that serves a capitalist framework. According to Debord, the spectacle shapes our relationship with the world, each other, and even with ourselves. Instead of actually connecting, we engage with representations of connection rather than with substance. They're about texting and leaving heart eye emojis under your friend's thirst traps. Social media stopped being about sharing our lives a long time ago. Now it's about curating the living crap out of that life and treating it like a branded object, something that others can consume. In the society of the spectacle, it's not about your achievements, it's about what you can make people believe you've achieved. The shift that happened in the 60s, we stopped focusing on production and started focusing on consumption. This meant that our desires, identities, and even our relationships are filtered through images designed to sell us something. And that is a suffocating thought. So yeah, we trade real experiences for fake ones. Instead of organizing our desk, we look at videos of people organizing their desks. And instead of intimacy, we see these big, gross gestures made for clicks. Even the way we interact with physical spaces has changed because of the spectacle. Okay, so story time. I went to what I believe was the crappiest fashion show ever. The sound sucked, the seating was gross, the programming, the production, it sucked. Designers were great, but everything else, it was just a mess. I was just looking around when I was sitting there enjoying the chaos. I saw this corner with a red carpet and a wall with logos on it. I just knew that the next day social media would be flooded with pictures of people saying this was an amazing event. I knew it. And of course, that's exactly what happened. They really acted like they did something, like they didn't stand in line for 30 minutes to have their picture taken by an intern. The real purpose of that event wasn't celebrating the designers or their designs or creating an experience for the attendees. Its purpose was to produce content that could be consumed online. The red carpet is a perfect example of how the spectacle commodifies experiences. It's just being part of the spectacle is not only exhausting, it's boring. It's a boring dystopia. We're met with an onslaught of representations every day. No wonder they overwhelm us and alienate us. We've never been lonelier. And the lines between fake and real have blurred so much that sometimes it's hard to see what reality people are actually living in. And I know this sounds very dramatic, but we've all seen it. This group of people goes out to dinner and then someone takes out the camera and they all act like they're having the time of their lives. The camera goes away and they all stare at their phone screens with expressionless faces, spending 20 minutes deciding on a caption. When we do this, what reality do we really inhabit? Unlike Plato, Debord is not that positive. He doesn't believe that we can just up and leave and see reality again. According to him, seeing reality again is this long, harrowing process of breaking free from sanitized images and returning to the real. And even though there's still a real world under the spectacle, it's nearly impossible to experience it without the distortions of media and technology and capitalism getting in the way. We don't see the world directly anymore. We see it through layers of ads and media and curated images. Reality is basically buried under so many layers right now that we can't access it as freely as we used to. For instance, the activity of exercise that used to be this personal health focused thing is buried under layers and layers of representations of unrealistic performative standards that we see on our feeds every day. I had to pick up my phone, so the camera angle might be slightly different, but oh well. Where was I? This is way too close. Like, Jesus Christ. My nose is red because it's 2 degrees in this bitch. What's important to realize, the spectacle isn't just a critique of media. It's a lens to understanding all the ways in which our lives are mediated, shaped, and commodified. But what if our reality is so obscured that we have nothing to return to? What if the representations aren't just distorting reality, but have actually become reality? If Debord's spectacle already made you feel bad, Baudrillard's hyper-reality will make it worse. And what can I say? I like giving myself existential dread. It makes me feel alive. He has this concept called the simulacrum. It means that the fake doesn't just reflect the real, but replaces it. Think of things like Instagram filters. In the hyper real, in hyper reality, they've stopped being just filters. Instead, they've created a standard of beauty that feels more real than our God given faces. Anything outside that polished ideal starts feeling less real than the filter. That's why people get plastic surgeries to match these filters. Where Debord says the lines between real and fake are blurred, Baudrillard says there are no lines. There is no line. The fake is the real. The real is the fake. Or take influencers, for example. They're bad enough as it is. But AI influencers take it to the next level. When it comes to the more realistic ones, people don't even notice or they don't care. Followers interact with these AI creations as if they were authentic, not because they're fooled, but because the AI influencer's presence feels just as authentic and real or as fake and meaningless. It depends on who you ask, as that of human influencers. This accidentally might be the most scathing commentary I could have made about influencing. But in hyperreality, the line between real and fake just stops mattering altogether. The line isn't just blurred, it's erased. And then there's how brands have ruined memes and hijacked authenticity. It's another great example of how the line between fake and real has completely gone to hell. Because there's no such thing as authentic marketing. In fact, I would say it's an oxymoron. The authentic has, just like literally everything else, been turned into a product. According to Baudrillard, we've reached the point where representations no longer point back to any underlying reality. They've become self contained and self perpetuating. This basically means that representations no longer depend on reality to sustain themselves. Just the word meme, the original meaning of the word meme, does a good job explaining memes. The word meme comes from the word imitation, and Richard Dawkins mentions it in some book in the 70s. And a meme is a unit of cultural information. Dawkins compared genes to memes. They both evolve and mutate and replicate. And just like genes, memes start living a life of their own. And they start shaping and influencing culture without necessarily being tied to any context or meaning. And they create their own world, generating more representations that feed off each other like an endless loop of doom. So, according to hyperreality, if we do step out of the cave looking for the real, we'll find nothing more than a barren landscape. Because if the only thing left is an endless loop of self referential slop, then even stepping out of the cave offers no escape. Basically, everything we consider reality has already been consumed by the simulacra, by the fake. And all that'll be left is representations, shadows in a cave. If I strip these philosophies down to, the bare bones, what it comes down to is this. Plato says the shadows represent reality. Debord says the shadows alienate us and distort reality. And the hyperreal says the shadows are reality. And even though these theories are decades old, social media is such a good representation of the hyperreal and the spectacle with the curated feeds and weight loss tea that makes you poop, hustle culture, clickbait, algorithm-driven trends. It works, but it's really not just social media. It's in ads telling us that our worth is connected to what we own. It's even in how we perform our lives and treat ourselves as products. It's almost like the real world has been reduced to this arena where we make content for the online world, a world that we treat as more real than our own. When I left Instagram, I thought I stepped out of the cave. I think that's the unsettling part. The shadows don't just stay in the damn cave. Social media representations constantly leak into other things like an infection until we don't even know what it's supposed to represent. And with all of that being said, scroll to your heart's desire. Do what you want. I really believe it's your God-given right to kill time just as much as time is killing you. So go forth and scroll if that's what you want to do. Just make sure it's a choice and not just a thing because your thumb automatically opened Instagram and now you've been looking at reels for 6 hours. I love life without social media. I love not knowing what's happening. I love not being force fed information I didn't ask for. I was personally kind of shocked at the difference it made to not have social media because I thought I was not influenced by anything. It did influence me, it did influence the way I saw myself. Now, I just feel better. I feel like the independent thinker I've always been. There's no such thing as independent thought in an echo chamber. Instagram tells you what to think, but it doesn't give you the space or the time to think for yourself. There will be another thing, another reel, another whatever, before you can even give something real critical thought. It's like we've regressed to middle school again. Like collectively, everything is oversimplified. I hope you enjoyed this video. I haven't made a video in a while because I struggle with this idea of who the fuck cares what I have to say? Who am I? But then I saw a reaction video or a reaction video of a girl who said one word and it had like millions of viewers. Or cereal being flushed down the toilet also had 3 million views. So if those videos have a right to exist, my little weird philosophical rant has a right to exist too. So I shan't be deterred. I love seeing where my brain takes me, and I knew about these three theories separately. I like how my brain connected them in a way that is hopefully understandable. I don't know if it makes sense to you, I hope so. But yeah, ultimately I'm just a person with ideas, and thank you for listening to them. And I really appreciate it. Of the millions of videos out there, you chose to click on mine, and I thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, well, I'm gonna take my lenses out because it feels like I have sand on my eyeball. It builds character. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.